Hey girl, I wanted today to be a bit more of a chilled, sit down, chatting video, catching up, talking about our feelings because last video was more, I don't know, advice based. And I'm still going through things myself in my personal life that I am currently working through, but I thought that I would share what I've been going through recently and like the revelations that I've had because I feel like they would probably help you guys quite a bit if you're going through a similar kind of thing. I had a realization at the weekend of just how much guilt and shame and embarrassment was really holding me back in life. It really had me in a chokehold and it was controlling my life and the way that I moved throughout my life. And I genuinely didn't, it kind of like kept popping up as like an intuitive feeling within me that this was something that I needed to work through, but I just kind of, it didn't feel strong enough. But then at the weekend I was like, oh shit, like this genuinely is holding me back so much and it is changing the way that not changing the way, but it's really controlling the way that I navigate life and walk through this world. But basically I've realized that I actually was carrying a lot of guilt and shame that was not mine. And this is something that I really want to actively work through because I think this has affected me my whole entire life when I think about it, just in the way that it took me a while to actually step into my authentic self and know who even was my authentic self. Like I genuinely didn't know myself for the longest time. And I truly think it was because I was just so riddled with shame and guilt unnecessarily. So basically this all came, I wrote down like loads of notes in my phone on what I was thinking when I woke up from a dream the other night. It was on Saturday night, Sunday morning even, when I woke up. I just had a really horrible dream and it was like to do with my parents. There was a lot of guilt and shame and things like that was coming up in it. And I do remember that on the Saturday, I had basically been in Manchester with my boyfriend and we went to Urban Outfitters and there was a section with books and they were all like really funny books. So some of them were like sex books, some were just like really silly, stupid books. You know the kind of books I'm on about. So I sent loads of pictures because I don't have like Instagram or I don't really post anything on Facebook or anything like that. I do have Instagram. I don't know why I keep saying that. I'm so used to saying that I don't have Instagram, but I do have Instagram. If you want to follow me, the link is down below. Anyway, so I don't post on anything. So I just send all the pictures to my parents in our little family group chat just to keep them updated and show them what I'm doing. And I sent a picture through and it was just in me holding a book and it was a really cute little book. I'll put a picture on the screen. And in the background, like I didn't even clock this, like I didn't even process it, but in the background there was books. There were like sexual books, but there were funny sexual books, if you know what I mean. Yeah, so they were in the background and I sent them through. I sent through loads of pictures as well, and my dad replied to that specific one and he put, I need to see what he put because I can't really remember. I do really trauma block things out of my mind. And like this wasn't anything bad. I think it was just, it brought something up within me that I feel like needed to be addressed. Oh my god, this is so funny. Yeah, so I've just noticed like on the picture, my dad like angry reacted to it, the picture, and then he replied to it and he said, what sort of bookshop are you in? And I didn't actually reply specifically to him. There was like a few messages with like my mom and I just put, it was Urban Outfitters, haha. I think he didn't realize that I was replying to him because obviously there was nothing to be ashamed about in that picture. Like I wouldn't have sent that picture through to them if there was anything to be ashamed about anyway. And like even if I was in a bookshop that sold like sex books or whatever, I'm nearly 26 years old, so that's not an issue at all. And then my dad replied again and he said, did you see those books in the background? And I replied to him directly this time and I said, haha, yes. And then he just put, oh. And that was it. That was the interaction done. But in my mind all that day, like I was literally walking around feeling so guilty and stressing the fuck out because I thought, oh my god, I've really disappointed my dad. I've really let my dad down. I feel so embarrassed. I feel so ashamed and guilty. And it made me realize that I genuinely get this feeling quite a lot. And I feel like a lot of people in my family make me feel this feeling, or like the feelings come from an interaction with them. And I realized how much I feel this quite often. Like whenever I don't thoroughly examine what I'm sending through, or if I don't really think about what I'm saying before I say it, I feel like I am made to feel really guilty about it. And even if they're not specifically making me feel guilty now about stuff, because I've got such an extensive history of being made to feel really disproportionately guilty for really random little things, I hold that inside of me. Oh my god, what is happening? I just have that kind of reaction inside of me. So when something like this happens, it triggers me. And I was thinking, this is the most ridiculous thing thing ever. And I was talking to my boyfriend about it. I was like, oh my God, I feel really guilty and embarrassed that I've sent this picture through. Like, I feel like I've done something wrong, and I feel like my dad's really angry at me. And basically in my dream that night, I had a really horrible dream that my dad was like really, really angry at me. And it was basically like being back in my childhood again, and like him shouting at me. And like in this dream, he was like punching me, like just punching me. And like it didn't hurt. It was like little taps in my dream, but like he looked so angry. And obviously like my dad's never punched me or anything like that. But like it brought back a lot of this feelings that I had when I was a kid of like fear that he was going to do that. Like I always remember like being really scared, even though he didn't really give me, like he'd never done that. So I don't know why I thought that. I think it was just more so that I was scared. Like I was just genuinely scared as a child of just everything. But yeah, so I just realized how often I was made to feel this way, and how often I'm still made to feel this way, and how much it's haunted me to this day because of unresolved situations in the past. And just basically because of like how my family and my parents interpret things in a way where there is a lot of shame instilled into it, probably because they had a lot of shame instilled into them. But I really just want to break that cycle because it's so ridiculous. Like when I think of it from an outsider perspective, it's so ridiculous. And if somebody told me that they were feeling that kind of way, or their parents were making them feel that kind of way, and they were my age, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, why are you feeling like that? Like they shouldn't be making you feel like that. And I would have a completely different stance on it, but it's very different when you're going through it yourself. So there was that, and I realized like, oh my God, I actually have a lot of shame and guilt about everything. And then that made me feel like, it just made me realize like how much I used to really think before I spoke. Like I never wanted to say anything out of line, because sometimes I would say things and it would be off like on a whim. It would just be something that came off the tip of my tongue and I just said it, and I would get a really positive reaction and people would laugh and they'll be like, I don't know, it'd be a positive response. But then because there was a few other times where there would be a very disproportionately negative response to me just saying naturally what came to the top of my head, I was the type of person that I would learn from those mistakes and I would vow to never do it again. But in doing that, it meant that I was really being so meticulous about the things that I was saying, and I felt like I feel like in my life I've kind of hindered myself in a way to not know what to say in certain situations because I overthink it so much. Whereas like the thing that I think at the top of my head, I don't know whether it's because I've got like a dark humor, I'm not even too sure, but I have quite a dark humor, so I would say things like that, but then they would not be received well by my parents. Like my dad, he doesn't get dark humor at all. Like he doesn't get anything like that. He's very, very sensitive and he gets very angry about stuff. So I really just had to watch what I say. And like when I think about that now, I just feel like I really, really had to make myself so small and so tiny purely so I wouldn't get in trouble and purely so I wouldn't get told off by my dad and be made to feel really bad and guilty, because I care about people a lot. Like I'm very, very caring, and I don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable or like I've said something wrong or said something to hurt them. So yeah, I just realized how much I was kind of censoring myself in that respect. This also took me back to feeling very guilty and very full of shame and embarrassment in my teenage years, in my early teenage years, and throughout my teens into my early 20s. I was carrying a lot of shame, and I think it was because I was the first girl born into my family of my generation, I think. Yeah. And I think with that comes a lot of responsibility to be a certain way and to be what people expected you to be, I guess. So I always felt like whenever I showed any signs of growing up, like when I got my ears pierced when I was younger, that's so funny because I'm literally wearing earrings today and I never wear earrings, but that wasn't planned. But when I got my ears pierced for the first time, I remember feeling so guilty and feeling so bad and being like, oh my God, I can't believe I've got my ears pierced, because I knew that my dad disapproved of it and he didn't like it. And I also remember like when I was a young girl, like I wasn't even a teenager yet, I was probably about 9, 10, and I had this top and I remember it so vividly, and it was a little off the shoulder top, but it had like straps here, so like just my shoulders were showing, and it was light blue, and it had like a girl, like a cartoon girl on it, and it said something on it, I can't remember what it said, but I literally remember wearing this top and we were going out for a meal and I felt so uncomfortable because my shoulders were out, and I literally in my head, I don't even know where I got this word from, but I was like, oh my God, you're literally a slut. slut. Like, why are you dressed like a slut? And I felt so gross. Like, I literally felt so uneasy. Like, I don't even know where this like verbiage came from. Is that a word? Verbiage. I don't know where it came from. It was probably Mean Girls, to be honest. Now I think about it, it was probably Mean Girls. But I just remember thinking that about myself and being like, ugh, and I felt so guilty and I felt so ashamed. And even up until like, I felt like every single year I got older and every single year I got more and more into my teens, I felt the distance between me and my dad. And I felt that people just really were disconnected from me. And it was like the more that I grew up, the more that people just outwardly hated me and really had something against me, and they really wanted to kind of pull me down. And I think this was from a place of maybe them not wanting me to grow up, and they would kind of like take it out on me in a way that they would tell me off and make me feel really bad and make me feel really guilty. Like, I wasn't allowed to do anything. I wasn't allowed to go to parties and things like that. I remember the first house party that it wasn't the first house party that I went to. The first house party that I told my parents about, I think I was like 13, 14. And I went to this party, I called it a gathering. And we went to the party and I remember like me and my friend got kicked out of this party and we was on the front like holding, I think we was holding a bottle of alcohol, but then the police like took it off us. The police were on the front anyway. We got kicked out of this party and it was just me and my friend, and then we ended up walking down the street because we were going to walk home, but then we ended up like just chatting with these boys on a corner. I had no idea who these boys were, and let me just add, when I was 13, 14, I was a literal child. Like, I didn't have any interest in boys. Like, I was so skinny. I had no boobs. I had no womanly features at all. Like, I wasn't there. Like, I wasn't where all my friends were at. So I was literally just talking to these boys like, I don't know. I wasn't thinking anything of it. And then I remember just like we were walking along and a car window rolls down and like so it was my auntie and my mum. My auntie was driving, my mum was reclining in the chair, and then she sort of like lifts the chair up and my auntie starts screaming at me, like so angry at me, screaming and shouting like, get in this car now, blah, blah. My mum wasn't actually that bothered. Like, my mum actually went into the house party to like evacuate my friends, and she was kind of laughing about it. So she wasn't that bothered about it. But I just remember my auntie was so angry, and she kind of like, she would fall out with me over the tiniest little thing. So I knew that this would mean that like we would fall out for a long time. And I just remember crying. I remember feeling so bad and so guilty. And like, when I think about it, there was literally nothing to feel guilty about. There was genuinely not. Like, I told them that I was going to a party. Obviously, I didn't know police were going to turn up. Like, I didn't think it was that deep. But to be honest, it wasn't that deep. Police always would turn up to house parties. Anyway, so like, there was nothing to be guilty about. I did tell them where I was going because they knew the location. I just trusted them that they wouldn't stalk me. And I just felt so guilty about it. I felt really, really bad. And that was just the common theme throughout my childhood and throughout my teenage years. Like, I just felt so much shame and so much guilt, and I honestly thought that I would have been past that now. Like, I obviously recognized that that was something that I had to go through and it was uncomfortable and I didn't like it, but I never for a million years actually realized that I was still carrying that guilt now, and the way that it just affects maybe sometimes when I actually want to do something or I want to step out of my comfort zone. It's like I've got this little inner parent inside of me, and it's like my dad, his voice telling me like, no, don't do that, you can't do that, like you shouldn't do that, girls shouldn't do that, girls shouldn't have an opinion, girls shouldn't do this, that and the third. That's kind of like the voice that's always been inside of me, just kind of haunting me. And I know that that's not my voice, and I've gotten to a point now in my life where I'm like, I am so done with carrying this shame because it's not mine. It's literally not my shame to carry. And if it's so much easier said than done, but like in my head, I'm trying to like tell myself, like, if my dad has a problem with me sending him a picture of a book, like the book was so harmless, like you would have seen, the book that I sent was so harmless and I had no weird intentions or anything like that. Like, it wasn't seedy, but he made me feel really seedy. But like, if he has a problem with that, that's not my problem. Do you know what I mean? And like, I'm so tired of expending so much energy on worrying about what other people think of me and worrying whether people think I'm like a good girl or not, because like, I was not born to be a good girl. Like, I wasn't born to be just this molded version of whoever my parents wanted me to be. That was not my purpose on this earth. And it has taken a lot of like unlearning up until this point. And I think there's always going to be layers of it that you unravel and you realize. But oh my God, that really like threw me off guard to feel like, oh my God, this shame is still within me. So I don't know. I think that when you have these realizations and you have these moments where it's triggering something that happened in the past and it's making you feel all these uncomfortable emotions and they're coming back up again, I think those moments are actually blessings because it's shining light on the things that you need to work through and you need to kind of reparent yourself on in a way, because I am actively reparenting myself all the time. And like in this circumstance, I am actively telling myself that you are allowed to be authentically you. You are allowed to be a woman. You're allowed to go to a shop where there are books about sex or whatever. You're allowed to literally do whatever you want and you shouldn't feel ashamed for it because you're a human being. And having a curiosity about the world and having an interest or an opinion, should I say, on things shouldn't be something that I'm made to be ashamed of. And I'm really processing that in my mind right now. Like, I'm just trying to tell myself, no, that's not normal. That's weird. We are not holding on to that narrative anymore because it's not our story. That is the story of our parents, and like that's their problem to deal with. Quite frankly, I am so tired of carrying the burdens and all of the childhood trauma of my parents because I've got enough of my own, thank you. And I also wonder, is this particular thing, what I've realized, like the guilt and the shame and everything, is that actually something as well that makes me struggle sometimes when I'm speaking? Because I find that when I'm filming a video and I'm kind of tripping up over my words, it's not because I don't know how to speak and it's not because I don't know how to articulate myself. It's literally because I am so used to overthinking everything that I say before I say it, to the point where I just don't say anything at all, or like what I say comes out all jumbled. And obviously that's something that I've worked on so much over the past year, and having this YouTube channel has really helped me. If you go back to like my first ever videos, you will see that they're just like, they're very heavily edited because I just really struggled to speak on camera because I knew that I would have to listen to what I had to say, and if I said anything bad or shameworthy, I would have to like edit that out and somehow then make everything make sense. But I have come so far in respect of that. But I do sometimes still get it. Like, I'll say something and I immediately, before I'm even going to say something, I stop myself. And that thing, when I actually think about it, I'm like, oh no, that was actually a really good thing to say, or like that was actually quite funny. Like, I'm hilarious. I don't know if it comes across, but I genuinely think that I'm so funny, and like I have little inside jokes with myself. Like, it's a good time being me. I enjoy my like narrative and I enjoy like the way that I think about the world, and I do think that I'm very funny. But it does make me feel sad sometimes because I do think that I hold myself back from saying a lot of things because I am just so subconsciously terrified of evoking a bad reaction or a negative reaction from somebody. And like, as much as that's not an issue now, like if I evoked a negative emotion or like reaction, should I say, from somebody, that wouldn't be an issue in adulthood. Like, it's when you actually think of it objectively, like that's not an issue. But because the reactions that I had when I was a kid to the things that I said were so disproportionate, and I would literally, whether it be like my auntie or my dad or anyone else, even my mum, if I said something out of line and I genuinely, maybe I did say something out of line and I felt really bad for it and I apologized for it, they would not let that go. They would never let me live it down. They would be so angry at me. Honestly, things that I've said like years and years and years ago when I was a child, they are things that are still held against me to this day. So you can understand why I'd be very hypervigilant and very scared to say certain things and scared to speak my mind. And I just think having this realization has really made a lot of things make sense to me. Like, I'm not crazy. I'm having this like epiphany at the moment where I'm realizing, oh my God, I'm genuinely not crazy. I am just misunderstood. And I think I just was brought up in a family that are very, very sensitive and very, very, I don't know, just carrying their own shame and their own issues and don't know how to deal with it themselves, and then they therefore put it onto me. But like, I don't know, I've got such a sense of peace at the minute because I feel like I'm not crazy. And that is such a freeing feeling when you've spent your whole entire life feeling like you are inherently evil and bad and awful. When I think about the things that I used to get told off about and I used to get shamed for or made to feel guilty or embarrassed about, when I think of those things now, and if I was my parent, I would not have made myself feel that way. And like, I would understand that they're not even bad things that I did. And I think like, when I think about who I love the most in this world, it's the people who are just truly and authentically themselves. Even if they say something maybe a little bit out of line, or even if they say something off the cuff and it's a bit near the mark. They're the type of people that I love because they are authentic and they are themselves. And I do think that I'm able to step into that more. Well, I do think I've stepped into my authenticity fully now. I don't feel as much shame in saying certain things because I've got different people in my life. It's obviously all a journey, but like I genuinely admire the people who can just say things and not give a flying fuck because they're just hilarious. They're so funny. And if everybody was just this perfectly well-spoken and eloquent and polite person who's saying all the right things all the time and everything's politically correct, that would be so boring. And why would I have wanted to have been that person? Like, I've never wanted to be that person. So why was I trying to be that person by overthinking everything I said before I said it? I'm so over it now. And I'm so glad that I had that realization and that I can continue to work through that and like journal through it and do self-concept work and actively reparent myself so that I can get that thought process and that just mindset out of my brain. Because yeah, we're on a journey of just basically unlearning everything that we've ever been taught over here. And it's really difficult, and it's not difficult, it's just really long. I guess it is difficult as well. I am gonna go. I hope you guys are having an amazing week. Let me know your thoughts on this topic because I don't know if it's just me who has felt this way like growing up, but yeah, I've just felt a lot of weird shame and guilt, and it's like, for what reason? There's literally no reason. I don't know. I'm just on this journey of realizing that I'm not crazy, and I think it's like fun to see that you guys are like, oh my god, same girl, like I relate. So yeah, let me know. If there is anything that you are going through at the minute, if you're feeling a little bit lonely and you're feeling like you don't really have anyone to turn to or talk to and you've just got a lot of things on your mind, or even if you can relate to any of the topics that I've spoken about recently and you just feel like you want to talk to someone about them and not feel so bad and maybe just even talk through them with somebody impartial who's not going to project their insecurities and random shit onto you, I do offer one-on-one personal advice sessions, which I will link down below. I do have a discount code as well, and they are very affordable. Just if you want to speak about anything and just have impartial advice and just speak to someone who is on your level and who gets you, because I know I would have paid so much. Like I literally would have died to have one of the people who I watched on YouTube provide a service like that back when I actually needed it. So if that is something that you would be interested in speaking to me one-on-one and just chatting about whatever problems that you've got, getting some advice from me, and I just feel like I could help you guys quite a lot. So if you are interested in that, the link will be down below. No pressure, obviously, if you don't want to. And if you literally just want to leave a question, you don't want to pay for a one-on-one advice session, you can just DM me on Instagram and send me through a query and I can reply to you, or I can make a video about it. So just let me know. But yes, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you are not already subscribed and you enjoy these videos. Yeah, I will see you next week. I hope you have an amazing weekend. Bye.